Okay, boxing fans. So we've got Chris Connolly here. Connolly is king. We got Rory Paddock from Picks from the Paddock, and we got Paulie Mack here. And we're just gonna give Chris's belated post-fight comments for Kell Brook, and we're also gonna talk about where both Kell Brook and Sean Porter go from here. So, Connolly, you ready?
Yeah, man.
What did you make of the actual fight in question?
Well, I thought Sean Porter were absolutely clueless. His tactical game plan was just obviously to go forward and throw wildly, which we talked about that in the pre-fight video. That were a danger for Porter, in my opinion. And Kell Brook just walked him onto shots. He didn't really have to use his jab, Kell Brook, which surprised me a little bit, but he stood in front and he shook him up in round one, and he shook him up a bit later on, and eventually Kell Brook took centre of the ring, which once that happened, Sean Porter was beaten. I think the right man definitely won. I thought Kell Brook won quite comfortably, but it was a terrible performance from Porter, really.
Yeah, there wasn't much going on from Porter. He was very one-dimensional in this fight, and his power looked overhyped, and he just looked overhyped in general in every aspect. Why do you think Sean Porter was so bad on the night?
Well, he's only got one tactic. He just goes forward. I think people seriously overrated him because he stopped Paulie Malignaggi, which, to be quite frank, he should be stopping guys like that if you're a top-level contender. His fight with Devon Alexander is very questionable. He's not got much of a heart, in my opinion. So I think people just read too much into his victories. And like I've said, he's just one-dimensional. His whole punch technique looked weird to me. He didn't look like he had very much power. He obviously had no game plan. I mean, he's got quite a long reach for a shortish guy. I think his reach was a little bit longer than Kell Brook's. So, the fact he didn't use a jab, that were a little bit surprising. But, he just looked like an amateur, really. He just didn't know what to do at all.
Yeah. Another thing that I noticed, and this is, sober me after the fight, is Sean Porter done a lot of shit-talking pre-fight. And it's not like Sean Porter, because obviously I've interviewed him and we've all watched him a few other times, and he's been, like a decent bloke. He talked a lot of shit. Do you think he started to believe his own hype and underestimated his opponent in this fight?
He definitely underestimated Kell Brook. I mean, he talked before and saying that he respected Kell Brook, but the silly thing of letting Kell Brook watch him spar and things like that, I think that was him just completely underestimating Kell Brook, and I think he believed the hype around him. People saying how good he was against Malignaggi. The next big thing in the welterweight division, they were talking about a potential fight with Mayweather if he beat Thurman after this fight. I think they just overlooked Kell Brook, but even still, I think Sean Porter's just so one-dimensional. He was always going to struggle against a classically good fighter like Kell Brook.
So I just want to talk about where Sean Porter should go from here for now, and then we'll move on to Kell Brook in a minute. We don't write off guys off one loss. He can still come back from that. He's a young lad, People who think that a loss is everything, really don't understand boxing. They've never heard of people like, Harry Greb, for example, or a lot of the great fighters who all have losses. People like Bernard Hopkins, who has a loss in his first fight. So losses don't mean everything. But where do you think he can go from here?
I think this loss will be quite a tough one for Sean Porter to get over. He is inexperienced and he is young, but I think after the 6th round, you could see in this fight he gassed, and he just ran completely out of gas, ran out of ideas. So he's got an option of moving up, but if he comes back to the welterweight division, he's got to be looking at the arse end of the rankings really to get his name back out there, and then obviously he's got to be starting again, calling the likes of Thurman out.
Yeah,
it's certainly not over. I mean, a loss can it can lead to greater things like you've already alluded to, but he's got an awful lot to learn.
Yeah, obviously, but we don't know if he can learn that or if he cannot learn that, but there's no point writing him totally off and saying his career's over right now, because it's obviously not. But if you were, say, his manager, where would you be putting him to? 147 or 154?
No, I'd be moving him up for sure. I mean, like I say, he looked like he gassed after the 6th round. His work rate, you can't fault the guy. He throws a lot of punches, but if you're going to throw that kind of volume out, you've got to land, and obviously if he's struggling at this weight in any sense, like we know he's been up in the higher weight division before, so I think he's definitely got to move up at some point, whether it's his next fight or the fight after, we'll see.
So I'm going to let you be the matchmaker now. Who would you put him in against that 154? people like Jesus Soto Karass would maybe be a good comeback fight.
Yeah, something like that. Anyone really. I mean, Rabchenko's, maybe even a fight with Ishe Smith, who doesn't throw a lot of punches. So, no, they're good. They're fights he could win. Obviously you can't be going for the likes of Andrade or Alvarez. They're way too high up at the minute. He's got to be looking for mid-ranked, low-ranked guys.
That's right. And if you're going to aim in for a world title at 154 pounds, which one would you aim for? But just before you tell me that, the likelihood is you won't be having another world title shot until late 2015 at that, if best. So we don't know exactly who would be at the top of the tree at that point. But if you could guess now, who would you really try and aim for?
Well, I'd go the IBF route, no doubt. Molina.
Pedro Molina.
You stay away from the big guys, Floyd Mayweather's, Lara's, Andrade's. He's not ready for them.
Yeah, that's right. We'll just leave you for a second now, Chris, and we'll bring in Rory from Picks from the Paddock.
Yep.
Rory, so what did you think of the fight? Quickly.
I think I'm pretty much going to echo what Chris said, whereby I think that it was a fight that Porter lost rather than Cal being overly impressive. I think it was a lack of discipline on Porter's part. It was a lack of respect for Brook as well that probably cost him the fight. He was very one-dimensional, threw a lot of punches, but if they're not going to land, then it means absolutely nothing. You might as well be fighting a punching bag.
Yeah. At this fight, pre-fight I picked Porter by stoppage late.
Yeah, me too.
On fight night after a bottle of vodka, I had a stone cold draw, 114, and sober the next day when I watched it, I could definitely see how Brook won. What about you?
It was one of those things that I kind of said to you previously, whereby I think that it depends how you score. A lot of people I'd probably class as, without sounding insulting, a bit naive, would look at punch stats and go, well, who put the work rate in, who threw the most? And if you're going to base it on that, then it'd be Porter. Porter was also the more aggressive fighter as well, which is something I tend to favour. But as well, with that in mind, you kind of think, well, 20 odd punches from Porter, if only 2 of them are landing, then it becomes redundant. I'd probably in that instance then, if looking back at it and watching the fight, because I watched it twice, I scored it a draw. I'll be honest and say, the first time I saw it, I scored it to Porter by 1 round. The second time I looked at the fight, I scored it to Brook by 1 round.
Yeah.
So I'll sit on the fence and probably would have given it a draw. I don't think either of them were that impressive that they deserve to be world title holders. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand that. So I'm going to let you be matchmaker now and manager. If you were Sean Porter's manager, like I said to Chris as well, a loss doesn't mean everything. He can come back from
No, yeah, I mean, he's a young lad, definitely.
Yeah. Where would you have him fighting? 154 or 147?
154.
154. Who would you be aiming a title fight for him to be fighting against? In probably late 2015.
Oh, title fight, definitely Molina. In terms of, definitely going the IBF route. In terms of next fight, if he was to step up next fight, you'd look at someone, say, top 20, someone the likes of, I don't know, a Cornelius Bundridge who's been around forever and a day, putting him in against someone like that. They might be able to get a bit of, a bit of the back pages as they were in America. And he just needs to not start from the bottom, because I'm still going to think Sean Porter is going to still be a name despite the loss. But put him in against, what we would consider a European level fighter over here,
Yeah.
Perhaps an American sort of equivalent. Someone perhaps in the top 10, the IBF, nearer the number 10 side of things.
So like Ishe Smith, Kanan Bundridge, people like that.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Before trying to get Carlos Molina.
Yeah, it's definitely the easy. I mean, he certainly shouldn't be going for Andrade or Alvarez anytime soon.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'll just let you go for a second, then we'll bring in Paul. Are you ready, Paul?
Yeah, mate.
Brilliant. So, pre-fight, what did you pick? And post-fight, what was your thoughts?
I picked Porter to win a fairly comfortable decision, and post-fight, after watching the fight, I was very disappointed in how Porter fought, and quite impressed with how Brook fought.
Mm-hmm. How did you score the fight?
When I watched it live on the night, I managed to stay up till the early hours. I scored a stone cold draw. I had it 1-1-4, and I hadn't been drinking. I've watched it again since, and I scored the fight near enough the same, but I ended up, second time round, I ended up giving it to Brook by 1 round when I watched it back. But on the night, I had it a draw. I had it very, very close.
Yeah. Congratulations, Paul, for staying up all night with the boys. And
I managed it finally.
I was not stoned sober. I'll say that. But I'm going to give you the same question, and that would be, where would you expect to go for Sean Porter from here on out?
I'm going to disagree with the guys. I think he should stay at 147 because I know he's a big guy in terms of, body mass. He's very stocky, but I just don't think he's got the height to do well up at 154. How tall is he? 5'6"?
Yeah, that's right, 5'6".
Something like that. And the guys at junior middleweight are quite tall. Alvarez is about 5'9", 5'10". I've stood next to Demetrius Andrade. He's about 5'10", 5'11".
Yeah.
I think his lack of height could really hinder him if he went up to a junior middleweight. So I think he's better off just staying at welterweight and picking up the pieces, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. So this is quite good then, because you've picked against the rest of us. Who would you pick him to fight next then?
He's in a very, very bad position now, I think, because I really can see Golden Boy throwing him to the wolves now, because that was a fight that he was not supposed to lose. Mm-hmm. Golden Boy and Showtime probably had plans for Sean Porter. They had some opponents in mind. Probably had some big fights they wanted to make in the next 12 months for his title, and they have just completely gone out the window now. Now that he's went and lost the title to Kell Brook, who was 2 Americans and unknown. So I really think Golden Boy will not be pleased with Sean Porter, and he won't give him an easy route back.
Mm-hmm. So in
terms of his opponents, you're asking?
Yeah.
I think they could make him fight Keith Thurman.
Yep.
Now, maybe if Marcus Maidana, if he loses to Mayweather in the rematch, they could make him fight Maidana.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe who's the guy I've got in my head?
Alexander rematch?
I don't think there'd be much point in that, personally. He wasn't the guy I was thinking of. Maybe if he gets lucky, maybe they do throw him a bone and give him an easy fight. Maybe they'll make him fight Zach Judah if he's still knocking around. Maybe Victor Ortiz if he ever comes back. But I really think he's not going to get an easy ride off them. They're not going to give him easy fights like that. They're going to make him prove his worth now and give him some really hard fights.
So Chris was the only one who actually got this fight right on the official prediction, and has kept up a 100% record on predicting fights. I think that's this year. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, that's with European Boxing News as a whole. Yeah, I've been lucky.
Yeah, lucky bastard. But he's been ducking us for most of the year, so that's what it is. Obviously, we're not naive. We're talking about Kell Brook, where he goes in the future. We know that the money is not in the title shot, it's in the title defence. We know Leonard Bundu and Jojo Dan are fighting a final eliminator, so they're not going to be probably fighting the first defence, which will be in Sheffield, which is probably going to be called the Homecoming. So, Chris, without any further ado, who do you think will be fighting Kell Brook for his first defence?
Yeah, it's a shame about Bundu. That'd have been a really good fight, but I think you've got to look at the arse end of the top 15 probably. Maybe you could go with Kevin Bezier, possibly Robert Guerrero if you were willing to travel, but I think it's going to be a lesser known guy, possibly even a Malignaggi type fight, but I'd be surprised if it were that higher profile fight, to be honest. It's going to be an arse end fighter for me.
So someone like Judah coming over, maybe Judah's always got a good relationship with the IBF.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, they're going to go the easy route, aren't they? I mean, we all know what they're going to do. They're going to build up a fight with Amir Khan in the future. That looks the most likely way forward.
That's right. Unfortunately, I think that will be the case. But then the next fight will be probably the winner of Jojo Dan versus Leonard Bundu, which that's a good fight in itself. And then the winner of that fight versus Kell Brook will be a good fight as well. So, what are your thoughts on those two fights?
Yeah, the Bundu, the Bundu fight is really interesting because, we all know Leonard Bundu. We know what he did to Frankie Gavin. We know what he did to Lee Purday. He's got quite a good reputation over here, and he's highly ranked by the IBF. He's a quality operator as well, a really good fighter. I'd love to see Kell Brook fight him. I think that'd be a tremendous fight. I think it'd be close enough. I'd fancy Kell Brook to win that fight, but that would set up an Amir Khan clash beautifully. It'd be absolutely massive at that point. Providing Amir Khan had no hiccups along the way.
Yeah, that's probably the correct. So you were expecting Leonard Bundu to beat Jojo Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I think Leonard Bundu, everyone talks about his age, he's getting older, this, that and the other, but he's a quality operator, a really good fighter, a genuine, probably top 5 guy.
So I think he'll give anyone in the division a decent fight. He might not win them all, he might win some, lose some, but at the end of the day, he's going to give them a good fight, and that's all that you can ask for, really. Moving on from that, do you think there'll be, after that fight, another fight where, they bring over some kind of guy for Kell Brook, or will they then go straight into the Amir Khan fight?
No, I think they go straight into the Amir Khan fight then. It built it up nicely. You don't want to play around, Kell Brook, you've got to understand, Kell Brook has not got the same kind of profile Amir Khan has got. Yeah, he scored an upset victory against Sean Porter, he's a world champion, and Amir Khan isn't. But he hasn't the profile of Amir Khan, he hasn't the pulling power of Amir Khan. So, they're not going to want to wait too long. They don't want to catch Amir Khan while, Kell Brook's got the belt kind of thing. They're going to try use that as bait to force Amir Khan into a fight, and that makes both guys loads of money, but off the back of Amir Khan, in my opinion.
Well, I've got another option for you. How about this then? Amir Khan fights Floyd Mayweather. Yeah, and he's probably going to lose that fight. That's, near here or there, and I don't think that actually affects a Kell Brook fight due to just who it is that he's fighting in Floyd Mayweather. If that's the case and they bring over someone, or maybe even put Kell Brook on the undercard of that fight, or around the same time he fights someone like Collazo, or some type of half decent fight like an Andre Berto, someone like that, would that interest you, or do you think that's likely or unlikely?
I think it's possible, especially with Amir Khan making noises about fighting Floyd Mayweather. I'm not too sure Floyd Mayweather actually wants Amir Khan. I think Amir Khan would look, decent in that fight. I'd give him a good chance in that fight, but like I said earlier, you've got to be careful with Kell Brook. He can't let the trains keep going past. He's got to get on the train, you know what I mean? And he's got to cash in while he's got a belt. So I would have thought that they'd try get Amir Khan before he gets anywhere near Mayweather.
Maybe that's the case, maybe it's not. Last thing I want to ask you, Chris, is I think you've touched on it before in your other answer. There's been talk of the last 24 hours, people going mad, that Kell Brook does not need Amir Khan now.
No, it's nonsense. Sorry.
I was going to say agree or disagree, but you say nonsense, yeah?
Yeah, it's total nonsense. I mean, we've touched on it earlier. Kell Brook, he's not known in this country by the casual fans. He is not known. If you ask 10 people, I reckon 9 of them would know Amir Khan immediately. Maybe the odd one would know Kell Brook from his area, but he's not got a high profile. Yeah, he beat Sean Porter in America, but I don't think he's got a massive profile in America just because of that victory. I'm not too convinced how popular Sean Porter was. So, Amir Khan has the profile. He's got a following, and he's an really entertaining fighter, win, lose or draw. So, any potential meet-up between Brook and Khan, it's definitely been sold off the back of Amir Khan.
Yeah, unfortunately I agree. I think Khan is the household name. Kell Brook is not as of this day. That may change, we're not hating, we're just stating the truth. But the last thing I'm saying is one thing that could be a huge hiccup, right, and I'm not even going to suggest that either Amir Khan or Kell Brook lose, is maybe Kell Brook cannot make weight. What do you reckon about that? Yeah,
that is a really serious issue. I mean, we know how long he's waited for this. He's been in mandatory position now for over a year, Kell Brook. He finally got his chance against Porter. His body held up and all that. But previously, he'd looked very dodgy at the weight. He'd had problems at the weight. We all know this. And, That would be my big concern. He had a big camp for this fight, a long camp, a lot of time to get into shape. Now he's a champion. He could be forced into mandatories, so I would worry about him making weight on a regular basis at 147.
That's my biggest concern, and in terms of building up a fight into 2016 maybe, because you never know, depending on how because both Amyakar and Kell Brook are decently young in terms of boxing age, but it could take, to make a huge fight, and when I say huge fight, I'm talking, Carl Froch, George Groves type size. It could take 2 years to make that,
Absolutely.
Well, at least 18 months, and can Kell Brook stay at the weight for 18 months while fighting regularly? I don't know. Maybe you can, maybe you cannot, but that's the thing about boxing, and that's the thing about us predicting the future. So we don't really know, and we can't really pretend we do know. But we both think it'll be a slight hiccup. That's a potential banana skin. But good luck to Kell Brook. I didn't give him a chance against Porter, but I was wrong, and I'm happy to admit it. I like Kell Brook. I think he's half decent. So yeah, good luck to him, and I hope everything goes well for him in the future. Thank you, Chris, and thank you the guys, Rory and Paul, for coming on and talking about this. So, hope you've enjoyed our video.